disrespecting the woman because I'm like, man, you stupid. Like we should like we in here about to go through this because you don't want to get. I'm saying all of that while my mama listening to the radio, the kids are screaming, and just grown lady crying, and I'm going.
I am an island warrior. Don't you forget, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
All right, so before we let me sit my ass down first. All right, so disclaimer: we're not in the broke Olympics. This isn't to like compare traumas and decide who had it the roughest going up or who faced more. I just want to. It's an interesting little angle to take. I just want to talk about summer. I feel like I got this thing I like to say, like, no matter like where I am, what's going on, whether it's an event that happens on TV or breaking news, it seemed like I was always there. Or when I look back at the places I've been in my life, there's been a lot of big things that happened and I was there. So, I mean, right off rip was a Hugo baby, you know, came out literally a couple days, a couple weeks after. So there was a chance that we may have never even seen the light of day, the way that storm came through here. And I don't think my people left, So starting off being a Hugo baby, um, I remember I was 3 or 4 in Oklahoma, Plainview Head Start, right? And I don't know if it's still in existence or if y'all want to fact check me or whatever to make sure the story's legit. I just remember going to Plainview Head Start, and one day, all the children were, you know, doing what we had to do, and it felt like an earthquake had happened, like an explode, boom, the building was shaking, like oh snap, oh snap. So teacher, hey, all the kids, round up all the kids. I remember this. Turned on, she rolled that little TV thing and turned the TV on and started looking at the news. And that's when the dude Tim McVeigh had blew up that building in Oklahoma. So it was so close to my head start that we felt the vibration. I don't know what type of weapon he used or whatever, but it shook my school. Um, and there was a kid, I don't like, not a kid, a child. I never forget him. His name was Emmanuel, because we went to an AME church at the time, and it was a little kid who got, for I guess he was in that building at the time with one of his guardians, and he had gotten burnt to the point where he had to have one of those little things on his neck, like there was a hole in his neck. So he was like a little kid, and he was full of energy, and he would try to do everything, but like he had that little thing on his neck. So I had known someone that bombing had affected. Um, that happened when we like first was getting to Oklahoma, and then more towards the end phase, because Oklahoma was relatively peaceful. Um, we always would have like tornado. We lived on an Air Force base, so they had these tornado sirens that would sound at any threat of a possible tornado or warning. It would always go off. But it's been years of this thing going off and nothing really affecting us. But I believe the date was May 3rd, 99. And there on the base, I was a part of a Little League baseball organization. And it was like a community type of thing. So you could literally, everybody could walk to the baseball field and we'd have the game. So me, my mama, my little brother at the time, my little sister, we went to the game. In the game, it was a clear day walking there, and the game ended up getting delayed because there was a tornado threat that just came out of nowhere. So we had to end the game, and everybody had to walk home or drive home, however you got there, hurry up and get home. It would have had to been like a 15, 20-minute walk, maybe 10-minute walk to get there and get back. Let's just say by the time we got home, the whole sky was like green. Like I'll never forget how it looked. It was like green. It was dark and it had like a green tint. So much so that it was worth noting. That's how fast things had changed. So I remember my mother and another lady that lived down the block who they were kind of cool. We had ended up together because she called her, hey, you heard what y'all gonna do? So there was like a local high school that we could go to for shelter. But the only risk is we got to risk driving through this storm and making it there, not knowing where exactly it is. So I remember being in the back of that vehicle with all her kids and my mom and kids packed up because we were on our way to go. I'm like, man, let's go. Like the more I don't even know how old I was. Maybe 10. I'm like, man, let's go. Cause she's trying to I remember this lady, they had just gotten a new van. And I remember this lady saying she didn't want to risk damaging the new van. And this was the day that I guess I got away with saying anything. So I'm screaming at my mom, like, man, forget what she's saying. Like, she talking about a van. And I'm 10 years old saying this, and this lady saying this. But I think my mama, we got halfway down the road because we were going. And my mama, I guess she was like, well, I gotta kind of respect what she's saying, kind of conflicted. So we ended up turning around and going back to their house, which was like a few houses down. And all of this time is passing, the headed out, to deciding to head out, the heading out, stopping back, coming back. It's getting worse. So we literally got in her house. As soon as you open, there's a closet walkway. Now it was her two girls, my newborn sister, my brother, me, and my mama. So that's 6, 7 people all packed into this, initial closet of the house. It really wasn't that big, but we were packed in there. I think there was a radio that she had, so we grabbed the radio, we got in the closet. Now, at this point, we're in the closet. The ground was shaking. We could feel the ground shaking. It sounded like a freight train was outside, the ground shaking. So all the kids are screaming and hollering. And I'm literally like disrespecting the woman because I'm like, man, you stupid. Like we should like we in here about to go through this because you don't want to get. I'm saying all of that while my mama listening to the radio, the kids are screaming, and this grown lady crying, and I'm going, you know, and I remember like when it started really shaking, like I thought like there was no way that wasn't going to be the end. I remember my mama screaming because it was really that real, like, oh Lord, like it about to happen. And then all of a sudden, it just stopped. And the radio reporter was like, and it just made a sudden turn, something. I remember, excuse me, I remember the word sudden turn. I don't know the exact time frame or whatever, but it just stopped. So there was a moment of like, we still here. We stayed in there for a little while longer. We listening. Thing made a sudden turn. Blah blah blah. It's going this direction now. So even though we were inside, you peek your head out the door, like we outside. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of peeking and creeping, and like okay, I guess it's gone. And that led into going out the door. And I never forget this. Like I peeked my head out the door, ain't see nobody. Kind of walked outside by the sidewalk. Then I saw my other little homeboy. He was peeking at the door. And my other homeboy down there, he was peeking at the door. And we just ran outside, man. We just hugging each other, screaming. Like, and from that point, I remember there was a lot of debris everywhere. So we found a check. We found wallets. We found like animal bones. There always was this gate. We lived on the edge of the base. So there was a gate so we could see out in the civilian world. And there was a food line that was there. Let's just say that food line was gone. It was a devastating day. I think there was multiple tornadoes that tore up the state. I know one of my music teacher at the time, Miss Harris. her chimney had caved in on her, so she was walking around all year with a back brace. It was devastating, but that was another kind of close call that I can recall. Fast forward a little bit, we moved to Maryland. Two things that stand out there. So I was in sixth grade when September 11th happened. And I remember that day, like we were just sitting in class and boop, may you send such and such to the office for early dismissal. Okay. You lucky you get to leave school early. That's how it was. Next thing you know, boop, can you send such and such? Like, dang, okay. All right. You guess y'all lucky. Boop. This time it's like 2 and 3 names. Can you send such and such and such and such and such and such? He's like, damn, what's going on, boy? Boop. Now it's like 5 names. So it got to the point where, like, if you was one of the last ones sitting in class, you like, damn, what like what they call my name? And eventually that name called, I think I ended up had to ride the bus with a couple other kids that day. But what was happening was what we found out, because my teacher, Miss John, she ended up turning the TV on and we saw it. So we saw what happened with the Twin Towers and all of that. Now, even though I wasn't in New York, what kind of intensified it was, again, military kid. We lived on Andrews Air Force Base. Where my house was, the same distance it took in Oklahoma to get from our house to that baseball field was the same distance that it was from our house in Maryland to get to where they actually stored and kept Air Force One. That's how close I was to these type of government affairs, I guess, or this military, these military sectors of life. Literally 10 minutes down the road was Air Force One. So as you can imagine, the Pentagon was in the state or neighboring. So that Air Force base was very like, it was pivotal to the equation. So the base was on, like, you guys, you can imagine, like all type of protocol and high security, everything like that. So it was right in my face. First time I had been conscious or old enough to realize we were about to go to war. I remember, like, not being scared so much, but then, not knowing what I know now or feeling how I feel now, I was like, well, shit, I believe what they told us. We America, if we go to war, ain't no way they can beat us, right? That used to be the questions we asked each other on the playground. And yeah, so there's that. And then in Maryland also, when the DC sniper happened, I gotta make sure I ain't gonna call no names, but the DC sniper situation happened in Maryland. DMV. It was DC, Maryland, Virginia was happening. And I remember that time, like, it was literally like, hey, y'all gotta be careful about pumping gas. Like, everybody was like in and out. Like, it was like you didn't know what to expect. Just random people getting popped. So I don't know if it was true or not, but I will say this. And it's not even because I want it to be true. This is what happened. This kid that was in my class, he had the same name as either one of the brothers or the father. There were things in his life and about him that were mentioned that kind of made sense to this whole equation. But I just remember, naturally, we're young kids in school and we're like talking about the sniper and y'all, hey, the sniper dude, like, we coming up with our own theories. This particular kid was always like more to himself. He used to hang with this one female. But I remember we were in the barrack, like one of the little out like houses they had as a makeshift classroom. And we were talking about it, and he had his head down, and he just banged on the desk and got up and was like, God damn it, that's my dad. And boy, everybody got quiet as a bitch. I don't think nobody said nothing the rest of the class. Now we seventh grade now. We ain't saying nothing the rest of the class, boy. So that was a thing. Um, is there anything else after Maryland? We move back home, and I dealt with personal things like that. But yeah, man, I guess that's it, man. I thought I had a lot more to tell than that. I guess I don't know if that's enough to consider, like, claiming that you've been around or in the vicinity of a lot of, you know, historical events. Let's just call them that. I think that's about it. That's about it. But it always, what I took from all of that, realizing that is like, obviously I'm here for a reason. We're here for a reason because there are so many opportunities or things, times when, and even just in everyday life, certain situations, I always like to say, for some reason, I always make a left when everybody makes a right. And that left turn is always the thing that saves me. And I'm like, dang, like it literally be coming like that close sometimes. So it just taught me that to be fearless to a certain degree. Like, if I was supposed to be caught up in something, like there were plenty of opportunities for us to be gone, even starting back from birth, you know? So there's a certain protection that is to be acknowledged, a certain gratitude to be expressed of what seems and appears to be a divine protection. Because, like I said, so many situations, things could have just, it like, could have been over with. But I'm still here in position. Sometimes, not to get too egoic, but it reminds me of like when the Bible was talking about how the Pharaoh had ordered every firstborn to be killed because he didn't know who the truth would be coming through. Like it kind of made me start playing into that narrative, to accentuate the character because it's like hard to kill, man. Because it only makes sense to be in position to have this power, to recognize this power, and use your voice to affect change and have a knowing and a fearlessness that was all backed by some of these things that I've survived or been through or been there first as close as I possibly could have without being actually involved and caught up. So yeah, what are some of y'all's like moments that you've been through where like I said, you made a left when everybody went right, or at that last moment, your first mind gave you a hunch to step this way, and like share some of them moments that let you know that you're here for a real reason. Because once we do, we can realize we got so much to do. There's so much we can do. You done faced death and you still here. You done been through certain situations enough time and time again. It was a training for something. So yeah, y'all leave them in the comments, email me, do whatever. You got my number, send it to me, and we'll go from there.
My every battle's won and the table said it's true. Yeah, it's true. Oh, oh, yeah.